So thanks for taking the test ahead of time. I love how you color-coded it, you're turning into me. Let's talk first about the exemplar responses to the exam. So what are some of the keys to exemplary work on this test?
So for one, you have to include units in here.
I didn't catch that.
That's going to be important. Another thing I think that's important is for responses.
You can start recording your things here too,
Cool.
just so we have them to look back on throughout the year.
It's a lot of line stuff, so making sure you get the right slope. That's what I really got out of this. Most of these questions are line questions, so they're gonna make sure you have to have like the right slope, the right, if it's perpendicular, know how to switch it, that kind of stuff.
So I had calculating slope
Okay, cool.
and then equations for lines in different scenarios. I think that kind of
Nice.
captures all the different ones.
Yeah.
Like parallel and perpendicular, given a graph, all those different things. What else did you notice? Some keys to exemplary work on the test.
Some other keys, they do have answers that are in like factor form, like squares and that kind of stuff in radical forms. They gotta be familiar with that. Also, they're gonna have to read, a lot of this stuff is review, ratios,
Trig functions I definitely wrote down. I would
Yeah.
write that down because that's like on there so much.
Right. Trig, ratios, a little bit of Pythagorean theorem,
Got that too?
and a lot of circle equations.
And the only other thing I had down that you didn't say, but it is review for them as distance and midpoint theorem.
Okay. Sure, that's important.
Alright, now let's talk specifically about multiple choice. I have written down the ones that I struggled with. I'm curious, what multiple choice questions did you find tricky that we need to zoom in on in this unit?
Okay. So the ones I found tricky
Yeah.
were all the circle ones, because we haven't gotten to them yet.
Which
So
were which
numbers-
ones?
Numbers 9, 11, number 19,
Yes.
also, they're all in orange here.
Yep, I wrote down number 9 and 18, those circle ones.
Okay.
And 11, I think, is similar to what they did on the IA, but yeah, it's a circle one. I don't know if I solved 11 in the right way. I did it by the area of a circle divided by 2, and then used the theorem I can't say to find it. I got the right answer, but I don't know if that's the right way.
Yeah, I
But
did too.
I would definitely agree 9 and 18 for sure.
Okay.
Alright, were there any clear distractors on the exam? Anything that like, for example, do you remember when we did that angles one and how we both picked the distractor because we didn't do the second step? Did you notice anything like that in here?
Let me check these really quick.
Okay.
So, like, the problem number 2. So it should be kind of straightforward. Which of the following equation represents a line that be parallel to the line graphed? They just kind of threw you off here, like between B and C, because they just flipped the Y and X. So if the kid's not paying attention, then they mix up the Y and X here, because it should be, once you go through and solve a slope intercept form, it should be C, but B, it looks like almost identical to C, so they may get mixed up with these two.
I would agree. Yep. What else?
Let's see. Which was hard. Your distracted questions, let me see. Okay, maybe number 7. So number 7, to me, wasn't very geometrical.
Number 7, I picked C to start. But the answer is B.
The answer is B?
I mean,
I started off picking B. I think the answer is C. But
hold on 1 second.
this one's hard too.
Yeah, 7, the answer is B.
It's B?
Yes. That's what it says on the key.
That'd be a great one for distracting. I
Yeah,
picked C.
because I picked C also to start and then went back and wrote B. So let's write down number 7 for sure.
Perfect.
Because you do have a day to talk about equations in context.
Okay. Number 7 then. To me, I think it's the pure distracting
The only
question.
thing, I didn't see any necessarily pure distractors, just that like in every case where it involves like 2 steps to solve the problem, they also give you the answer for if you quit at 1 step.
Right.
So I would make some kind of note about that, like there's distractors for the 2-step problems that stop at the 1st step.
I do say that before every test, because a lot of these questions, they trick you by stopping at the 1st step, but really they're all 2-step questions for the most part.
Kind of like the story of this test is like multi-step problems. Like I wrote that down a lot, like almost every problem you have to do 2 different things to land on the right answer. Alright, let's talk about the open response. So what did you notice that was challenging? Because I definitely have some thoughts.
Yeah, so with mine, I did it on another sheet of paper, I forgot to bring it, but you had to know the points, you had to find the slope between the points and distance between the points. So if you're not careful, if you're not like labeling your points, you're gonna get it wrong.
I put that they have to annotate the points on the diagram for sure.
Nice.
For 21.
2 points.
What's the other thing that's kind of tricky about 21?
I didn't get it right the first time, I did it. We're gonna talk about like what's not a road. Maybe?
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
right? I think that thinking X is a road is distracting. It's
Right.
distracting that like Y is a road, but the X axis is not. I wrote that down too. I do think 21 is more straightforward than 22.
Yeah, 22, I kind of gave up on this one. I did 21.
I had Mr. D help me.
Nice.
And I already sent you a calendar invite for us 3 to meet together to co-plan the lesson to go over this, because
Right.
this is tricky.
Yeah, okay. This one, I was kind of at a loss to what to do. I did 21, that was a lot easier. But for this one, it kind of threw me off. Even by reading the exemplar, even the answers, I still didn't really know what to do.
Steven and I spent 20 minutes last period looking at it, and so for part B, I can kind of just walk you through and we can put a little bit of notes, but part B, we used, you can pick any point on the perpendicular bisector, and that should make it an isosceles triangle.
Okay.
And so, like, when you're finding A, that's not a real point. Like, at first I was like, is F A? Did they mislabel that? No. You're supposed to, like, identify a point that could be A, and that's on the perpendicular bisector, which is what they're calculating here. And if you make it a perpendicular bisector here, then you can form an isosceles triangle here, 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 any point that's on this line.
Nice, okay.
Very tricky. Very tricky. And so, kind of what you have to do here is like calculate a point that's on the perpendicular bisector.
Okay.
So it goes back to that like writing equations for lines, and then like when you're, for example, given the points or not given the points, and determining what the points are.
Oh, that makes sense now.
It's a lot though, but so I think like we'll talk about it a little bit, but I think this is worth like a 90-minute day.
Okay.
And for C and D, in C, if you have that information, then you can kind of do the distance formula and that circle equation, which is covered in those last 2 lessons of the unit. We'll talk way more in depth about this FRQ later.
Okay.
And then same kind of thing here. They don't actually have to solve part D, they just have to write the equation, but it involves like doing some complex substitution. But
Gotcha.
we could talk for an hour about this problem. I say we table this for now, because the thing about question 22 is that the only thing that you're teaching in 22, like before you get to that day, is this perpendicular bisector, and you have a date for that anyway. So we'll take care of 22A during the unit, and at the end we'll take care of B, C, D.
Nice. Okay.
It's a doozy.
Nice.
Alright, any additional thinking steps beyond just like the mathy steps that you think kiddos are gonna have to use to like be successful in this test?
Additional thinking steps.
Yeah, what are some things they're gonna have to do that like aren't necessarily directly related to math?
Oh, not directly. So, well, for me, because the lesson is somewhat kind of review, I just know they have to be like proficient with slope and with the line equations. So I'm gonna have to hammer this home with the line equations and really go after that. In terms of not math related, they're gonna
Like
need
for
homework.
example, what are you doing here and here and here and here? Like, you have annotated, I'm just gonna say, you
Oh,
have annotated, like, you
True.
cannot be successful in this test unless you're pulling the information from here and annotating on the diagrams just like you have.
Okay.
And the second thing is like breaking it into the steps. Like for example, here how you did the 3 steps, and here how you did the 2 steps, and here. And so I think the second thing is like breaking a complex problem into the steps.
Okay.
And knowing like what orders to do them in. Like for example, that one where it's like the distance one and cutting across, like knowing that first you should do the theorem I can't say, and then secondly you should subtract from the perimeter.
Gotcha. That was a cool one.
It was, and I think they'll be successful with it if they can break that complex thing into like, okay, first I know I can find this line by using the theorem, and then second I can do that.
Gotcha.
Someday I'm gonna learn how to say that word.
I also add keep work organized too. I gotta get better about that. Make sure my work is organized.
Yeah, and I think you can just like more white space too helps. I think you've learned that too.
Cool.
Okay, follow me to the back. This next question I have for you is kind of redundant, but I want to like make sure we drive it home. What are the key topics of this unit?
Key topics of this unit are definitely equations of a line, like how you
First thing
said,
I wrote, yep.
in different scenarios. And then the second major thing in this unit is circles, equations for circles.
Mm-hmm.
If I could do a third one, I would do.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on mine, so.
Okay, cool. I will also do like distance and midpoint.
Yep.
Are big.
That's what I got too.
Midpoint. Let's see. We did. So I guess the equation of a line for me covers like slope and everything.
I did slope separate, but I agree.
Okay. Cool.
I think because they have to know the difference between like standard form and slope intercept form and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have the theorem I can't say.
The theorem.
Yeah. And the last thing I had is not necessarily a topic, but I just like made another note to myself that they do have to break complex problems into smaller steps.
Okay. Nice.
Okay. Now the next part of this we usually talk about CCRS stuff and what you're going to spiral into the do nows and homeworks. And I see that on your laser that you've already started to like make notes here, which is really great.
Nice.
So thank you for doing your quarterly plan ahead of time. The only thing you need to go in and do is maybe make the notes from your laser about like today I'm doing X, Y, Z, because I noticed you did put some on there that are happening within the first couple of weeks.
Yep.
And then, let's see, follow up, I made some notes myself. Oh, I did notice that you accidentally repeated 2 objectives, and so you had these 2 on here twice, and so I just deleted them and shifted everything up. You had these 2 down here again, and so I just like moved everything up.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I went ahead for you and added in the questions.
Oh, thank you.
And Steven added in links to resources, since a lot of this is slope and equation of lines, there's a lot of algebra. And so you didn't have to start from scratch. What Steven did is he went in and he linked in resources, so you could have problems and model problems and things like that. So, yeah. The reason why it kind of looks weird here is because he's put in 3 different things, and so if you just kind of, you have to like copy and paste it over to see what he has. But he put like the direct links to lessons in here. You won't be able to necessarily use them right as is, but I mean this one, yeah, this one's graphing and standard.
I was thinking about doing that. That's awesome. Thanks, bro.
Yep.
Nice.
So I moved those up. I put the Steven thing in there. What was the other thing? Oh, the last thing is you had the one quiz in here to do the slope quiz, because I think that's super important, and I think that's your notes on like cutting some of the CSRS quizzes and focusing on this one. I think that makes like total sense. I'm gonna send you a calendar invite for us to look at those quizzes together. For real, this time I won't injure my neck. And so we can kind of look at those quizzes together and reteach.
Okay.
And then I added in another quiz. I think because I think it was like 6 or 7 questions on parallel and perpendicular lines. I think we should quiz on that. We don't have a CCRS quiz for that, but we can make one.
Nice.
And then we'll meet after that too. So I'll send you 2 calendar invites to go over that together.
Cool.
What questions do you have for me for Unit 5?
Just want to make sure I did it right, because I
Yep.
put everything in, but I forgot to account for the days off. I had to move some things. That's maybe why I got messed up.
I think you're great. Yeah, I went
Okay.
through it this morning when for a long time, looks great. You have 2 more days than you thought since one, 2 were repeated.
Oh,
But I reached out to Aaron Lesser, who wrote the curriculum, and I said, you know, we're not gonna have time to do all of Unit 8, but what lessons should we do in Unit 8 that are gonna be on the final exam?
mhm.
And then what topics should we review before the final exam? And so he said he would get back to us in the next 24 hours or so.
Okay.
So we have 12 class days to do the key lessons from Unit 8 and then to review for the final.
It's almost 6, right? Okay.
Unit 6, sorry, Unit 6, sorry. The algebra's Unit 8, you're Unit 6, my bad.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay.
But we have a while until we have to stand that time.
And you also said we're not doing the end of course test. That's a Missouri thing.
We're not doing the Missouri end of course
Gotcha.
test.
Perfect.
We are doing the KIP one, which is final exam, basically.
Right.
All right.
That sounds good.
That was so fast.